She called it lovingly the donkey. And then I remember just thumbed the starter and it was just like, I need a cold shower.
This was back in the day of, it was black.
It would still try and rip my goddamn...
It gets to that rev limiter quick. We're doing some miles an hour.
I'm late for work and my fuel light has just come on. So I'm going to be even later for work.
Welcome everyone. Today is going to be cars and
bikes
that we both regret
selling. Well, when you say both regret, as in you're going to regret selling one of my bikes, is that what you mean?
Can't afford one of your bikes. Can't afford anything now. I bought too much. So who wants to go first? I think you should go first this time.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I don't even have to look at my phone for this one. I know this one.
Good.
Do you remember my Honda CB1300?
No, but we'll put an image on the screen now.
Yeah. I had one of those, well, very, very brief history lesson. I took a break from biking, and it was a 10-year break following a fatal bike accident that I witnessed.
Oh.
This is the story I told you about, whereby I bought the bike without telling Mrs. Ack and turned up at her work and went, ta-da!
You mentioned that in a previous podcast. I was like, the whole sort of, do I ask for forgiveness or ask permission?
Yeah, it was that bike.
Yeah.
Big, heavy, comfortable, such a smooth engine. It was a 1300cc inline 4 by Honda. So much torque, silky smooth, beautiful to ride. Yeah, I should never have sold it. But Mrs. Ack didn't like it at all. She called it lovingly the donkey.
Okay.
Because she grades bikes.
It doesn't sound the most positive name for it, does it?
Yeah, no, agreed. I don't know whether it's a gender thing, but she tends to grade the overall quality of a machine, whether it be a car or a motorcycle, and how it performs. I don't mean as an acceleration and brake horsepower, but generally how it performs as a utilitarian vehicle.
Yeah.
Purely on how it looks.
Yeah, it's fine.
So of course, that bike in her eyes was always like a steaming pile of poo. Which, no, it's a beautiful bike. Yeah.
And hence you regret selling.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think it's time for you, mate.
My first car that I regret selling is my first car. So the picture, and I'll put it on screen now for the benefit of those watching, is a grainy picture. And I always say to people, the reason it's a grainy picture, of course, is we're going back to 1987 when cameras were just cameras. And you had like 24 exposures or something, and you hoped at least 7 pictures came back without your finger in front of the lens.
Yeah.
This is before phones taking thousands of pictures every single day.
Days of 35mm film and Polaroid.
What the picture doesn't do, therefore, is justice. Now, when I bought the car, it was already quite a few years old. Can't remember how many miles was on it. Didn't matter. It was my first car. I was a happy boy, independent. It's a wonderful feeling.
I've got a question for you, because I can't obviously see the photograph that you put up on screen, and you've not actually told me what it is.
No, I will do.
Oh. Are you waiting for the 40 seconds?
No. Chrysler. There's a joke about that. Chrysler Sunbeam.
Oh, is that what it was?
1.6S.
Oh, nice.
Now, the Sunbeam, if you think of the Lotus Sunbeam, you'll know what shape we're talking about, of course. My father had one. His was a lot better condition and a lot newer. And I loved the car. So one came up for sale. It was £300, which...
But then again, in 1987...
Yeah, but it was still cheap, even in 1987. Was it perfect? No, not at all. And I put some notes on this little laptop here just to remind myself. So I'll give you some of its interesting quirks, shall we say.
It was like a Flintstones car.
The doors are big and heavy on a Sunbeam.
Yeah.
So every time you opened the door to get in and out, it would drop. So you would find, not horrendously, but it would drop. So you would find that when you're pulling the handle to shut the door, you knew you were pulling it in a sort of slightly upward fashion.
Yeah, to
make it latch.
Yeah.
For those that know the Sunbeam, the rear door, or hatch as you would call it, wasn't a conventional hatch insofar as it was basically a big piece of glass with a very thin metal frame and 2 locking pegs. So you couldn't slam the door down, you had to pull the door down. It wasn't really a door, it was just glass. And then you'd push one bit to lock and the other bit to lock. It had one wing that had been rattle can sprayed, but whoever chose the colour didn't use a colour code for the car because it was gold versus the sort of dark colour that the car was. It was nothing like the colour of the car. And whoever painted it wasn't good with a rattle can. They must have just stood there and gone, held the nozzle until the colour came on the wing. It had hammerite sills because hammerite paint was hiding the rust that was along the sills. Sometimes if you were driving around a corner vigorously, the engine would rattle because it would lose oil pressure as I was going around the corner. And back in the days when I didn't care about my life, obviously, because we were indestructible at 19, 20 years of age, I used to have to top up the brake fluid every few weeks, but it never occurred to me to actually go and get that sorted. It was just a case of...
That's something you need to do.
It just needs to be done.
Yeah. You don't mean indestructible. I think you mean immortal.
You do feel that way, don't you? It's just not a thought, is it? It's not that you think it. You just don't think anything, do you?
No, God,
so that was my first car, and I wished I'd still got it today.
Note time.
Reaches for phone.
Yeah. Come on. Oh. Yeah.
It better be good now.
Arguably for all the wrong reasons as well.
But there could be the wrong reasons. It's just, you know.
Well, do you remember that little red bike I had?
I don't remember any of the bikes you had, really, but go on.
Oh, mate.
I don't mean that in a negative way, but most times they're tucked up in the garage and I don't see them enough, so...
You did a camper van video.
So I do remember.
Yeah.
Because we filmed it and you were coming past the camp. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah.
Go on, what was that then? What
that
bike?
was a BMW S1000R Sport.
And we'll put a picture on. Hopefully one of your own of the actual bike.
Yes, it would be one of my own of the actual bike. Generation 1. It came out, I think, in 2015. We're now on Generation 4. Anyway, back then, weighed, I don't know how much it weighed, well, a lot less than 200 kilos, but it had 160 brake horsepower, which is not massively powerful. However, it was geared. Is it short gearing that makes it accelerate quicker?
Yeah.
It was well known to be short geared.
I always have to think about that, but yeah.
Yeah. The acceleration, Christ almighty. Even then, because for the eagle-eyed amongst you would notice that I'm a bit smaller than I was on the last video. A few stones smaller. So even with my then lardy arse on it, weighing like 17.5 stone,
right,
it would still try and rip my goddamn arms out of my socket, and I would have to hold on for dear life if I was really aggressive with the throttle.
But how old would you have been back then with this bike? Can't remember.
Ooh.
Oh, you would have still been 40s?
I got it, I think,
40s?
when I was, how old am I now? 50?
So I'm thinking you said about the camper van, and I know when I had the camper van.
Yeah. How, what, 5-6 years ago?
2019.
Yeah. Something like that. It was actually around about my 50th.
All right.
Because it was my 50th birthday present to myself. But the only reason why I sold it is because as orgasmic as that bike was, and I could wax lyrical for far too long about that bike, after about an hour in the saddle, I found it a bit uncomfortable. Yeah. And I remember one ride, me and Jane rode down to, southwest somewhere.
Yeah.
Taunton or that neck of the woods.
Nice,
Basically, all I remember, it was 3 hours from here to there.
Yeah.
And we stopped, and I got off, and I felt like a 96-year-old man with rigor mortis.
Okay.
It was, Christ almighty, I was in so much pain. It genuinely was not funny.
And you know that you've got to do the same to get back, of course.
Yes. So that's why ultimately I sold it. But my God, I'm just...
I suppose if you were still at your invincibility age, you wouldn't have batted an
eyelid,
would you?
Well, the thing is, I'm seriously thinking about getting another one, purely because now there won't be as much weight on the bike, so arguably might be more comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? And I just remember just getting it out, just to look at it. It was just one of those bikes where I could just... You know, I said the kind of F me next bike type thing. It was one of them where I wouldn't have to ride it. I could just quite happily sit there on my days off drinking beer in the garage staring at it. Right?
Isn't that what it's about?
Yeah. And then I remember just thumb the starter and it would just like bumble into life like a race car. Like, bum, 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 bum. And it's just like, oh my God, I need a cold shower.
If it gives you that feeling, it deserves to be on the list.
I know. And it was just, oh my word.
Mine's going to sound really bland compared to that then, because on my list next is an Austin Maestro. Now, for the benefit of
that's a picture of that. You showed me a picture of that, haven't you?
Yeah, I've only got one, albeit better quality picture of that one, and it's on screen
Was that the
now.
beige one?
No.
Okay, moving on.
So it's an Austin Maestro, which for many people would scare them off anyway. It'd be like, why is that on a list of cars that you want?
Well,
that
it's
you
because
regret
when we were
selling?
teenagers, they're the sort of cars that people had, weren't they? And that's what
They were bread and butter stuff. But of course, people that know or can tell in my voice still, even though I left there years ago, I'm a Brummie, and you support. And many
British
Brummies
Leyland.
support British Leyland
Yeah,
product.
yeah.
So it was an Austin Maestro, but the reason I like this Maestro, I'll give it the positives first, or what I thought was the positives. Number one, it was the VP spec, or the Vanden Plas or Vanden Plas. There's always different versions of what
Vanden Plas.
So Vanden Plas. So it had the fake wood on the top door cappings. It had a bit of fake wood, I think, on the dashboard, but it had velour seating, which anyone from Birmingham...
Oh, is that kind of like suede?
Yes,
looking?
anyone from Birmingham loves velour, as they always played Richard Hammond up on, you love velour in a car. It drove lovely. It had a Volkswagen 5-speed gearbox. It was a nice car to drive. It was a 1600. But the thing that was exciting to me, because I love tech like you do, and cars like I do, is it had an electronic dashboard.
Was that the one that spoke to you?
And it spoke to you.
Yes, I remember.
And I'll put a little audio clip in the video now of some of the things that it would say.
Warning, battery not charging. Warning, low fuel. Low fuel. Handbrake on. Lights on. Time. Trip distance. Average fuel consumption.
Car wasn't without its faults, so not long after I purchased it, I realised, because we live in the UK and we don't get many sunny days, that water ingress was a major problem. And I do mean a major problem.
You mean as in it rained?
As
and you
in,
weren't
I would get
driving
in the car and the front carpets were sodden. And as much as we tried to get it sorted and change a door seal or whatever,
didn't make any
we
difference.
never seemed to get to the bottom of the fact that it would have sodden carpets. So that is the next car that I regret selling.
Yeah.
Over to you. Let's keep this going.
Yeah.
Do you need your list?
A romantic choice,
Oh, go on.
and that was my first ever motorcycle.
Okay.
It's a D plate, 87.
Pictures on screen.
Yeah. It was Honda's then brand new Sport 600, which they announced a few years before, back in 1984. This
Okay.
model came out in this one was a 1987 model,
Right.
and I think it
Was it called a Sport
couple of-
600?
it was called a Honda CBR 600.
Yeah, okay.
It's like you and your first car. I went everywhere, did everything on it.
Well, because it's your first
Yeah,
independence.
yeah.
No longer travelling with parents. No
Yeah.
longer travelling with friends.
I still remember, because at the time I had a choice of buying a brand new, again, picture coming up on screen now, Yamaha YVPS 350 RD,
Okay.
power valve as they used to call it.
I thought you were giving me the registration number.
Yeah,
With
no,
what that
no,
was
no.
called.
It was either a brand new one of them at the time for 3,500 quid, because that
Okay.
was my budget,
Cool.
or I found out for a friend of a friend that he was selling a 2-year-old Honda CBR 600 for £3,000, and I was like, So anyway, bought the bike, and I remember riding it home. I had a crash helmet that didn't fit properly, and I obviously passed my test previously on a little 125. First bike jump, 125, passed the test, hadn't ridden anything, bought this 600. And I remember riding it home, not knowing how to ride at all. What I was doing...
You're invincible, so it doesn't matter.
is on the straights, I'd literally be pinning it for all it's worth, which now is nothing. It's only 85 brake horsepower, which is like,
Yeah, but it's still enough.
agreed, it's
You could
enough,
still
but
die.
when you're 18 years old, never ridden a powerful bike like that before, straight line, pinning it, and it was going, and the helmet would ride up my face, and I'd have to take my hand off and hold the helmet down. And then I'd get to a corner and not know how to ride a bike around a corner. I'd literally slow down to crawling pace and just poodle around the
Expecting
corner.
to turn the,
Yeah,
like
poodle
that.
around the corner, get to another straight bit. Oh, crazy.
The fact that it's making you laugh is enough.
Yeah. I did some silly things on that bike.
My next one then, keeping it going.
You'll
You'll know this car.
Yeah.
He's seen the list. I haven't seen Ack's list. He's seen my list.
No,
Go
I
on.
haven't seen your list, but
I
I've
sent
got
you
a
the list
funny
the other day.
feeling.
He hasn't read my list.
No, I haven't.
Why did I bother sending this? Go on.
Well, I'm not going to tell you. I'm just thinking I might be right. Go on.
Okay.
Oh, no, it won't be because you bought that one back. But moving on.
Don't say, because that's actually in the video in a bit.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Keep that one somewhere
Sorry.
there. So,
Sorry.
for me, probably the most sporty car I owned. Toyota Yaris T-Sport. You went in this Yaris T-Sport. This was
the
back in the
purple
day
one?
of... It was black. It was kind of the first days that I'd even met you. So we're going back to like 2002-ish.
Yeah.
So
This
black,
1.8 petrol.
1.5 petrol. So
1.5
black,
petrol one.
3-door. They didn't do the 5-door till a couple of years later. So black, 3-door, 1.5 VVTi. Was it fast? No. Did I like the look of it? Yes. Was it bomb-proof reliable because it was a Toyota?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I loved the dash. Anyone that's familiar with the earlier Yaris, that the dashboard used to be in the middle, in a pod.
Okay.
It wasn't in front. There was nothing in front of the steering wheel. If you looked directly in front of the steering wheel, you saw a dashboard. There was no clocks or anything. It was in the middle of the car. I'll put an image on screen.
Hold
now.
on. So
You're there and you're looking there. Well,
And
in
this-
Teslas, you now look at a big screen in the middle, don't you? So let's be
you look at a
honest.
fucking 75-inch plasma, don't you?
You do.
Goddamn
Yeah,
Tesla. So hold on. See, like, and like Speedo is like there.
Yeah, but the speedo was electronic in all the Yarises, including the funky rev counter that would come up obviously in bars, a bit like my Maestro that I mentioned earlier. But on the T-Sport, they put conventional clocks on.
As in proper old school analog
Yeah, with
clocks.
white backgrounds.
Yeah.
And although I've said it wasn't fast, and it wasn't, and it was a bit city-uppy, they sit up too high compared to what you look at nowadays. And the wheels weren't big enough compared to what you would want nowadays. But that 1500 VVTi with about, 110, 111 horsepower, whatever it was a VVTi and it didn't care how high you revved it. It was so happy to go quickly up to that rev limiter.
Did you bounce off it?
Many times because I was a little bit younger. There's a bit of a sort of the thing with the Yaris is it sticks in my mind for a lot of reasons because there was a lot of different things going on my life at the time. There was a lot of changes going on in my life at the time, and because of those changes, the Yaris ended up sitting in a garage at home for months without being used at all. And I can remember when I eventually was able and got back to the garage and effectively started to want to use it again, it did a typical Toyota thing, didn't it? Because no word of a lie and no surprise, I put the key in the ignition and I turned it and it was just an immediate. It was like I'd parked it there the day before. I have looked at buying one. That obviously at the time they were expensive because it was nearly new. It was an 02 plate. But now they can be like £1,000, £1,500. But finding one obviously that's in the condition that Mr. Biggs wants is a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
So I missed that car. Over to you, sir. Does he need the list?
This is my last one. No, I don't. It's another romantic choice.
Okay.
My first ever brand new motorcycle. I've had many bikes like you've had many cars, but this is the only one I've ever bought brand new.
Okay. So you've walked into a dealership and you've handed over the cash. Go on. What was it?
Before I tell you what it is, I'll tell you a little story. I bought it from On Your Bike in Aylesbury.
Okay.
It was in the days before, well, now it's all paperless, isn't it?
Yep.
So we've got this order form. We're like, what do you call that stuff between carbon?
Yeah.
Carbon and paper, yeah.
I think I know what's coming.
He's filling out this order
Because I
form.
think he said it in a previous video. Yeah, go on.
Have I?
Yeah, go on, keep going.
The whole, what
Yeah,
colour,
no, just go.
What colour would you like, sir? I'll have it in red.
Right.
So he writes out red. I wish I'd have kept that original order form. I really do. And I was like, no, sorry, no. I'll have it in black. So he crosses it out, types in black. And he continues, no, sorry. Can I have it in red? And he crosses it out.
You're very decisive.
And then we did it
I'd have been tempted to look at it and go, I'm going to buy you a red and black one.
Yeah. And then he did it again. I did it again with black. And then eventually I settled on red.
Okay, that would look... if you could have that form today, it would be really funny, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
it'd be brilliant. But it was a brand new
I'd
model by
frame it.
Yamaha. And it was called an FZS 600 Phaser.
Picture on screen there.
Oh, Yeah, that's another bike that I truly, truly loved and wish
What's-
I'd never sold.
What's sticking in Axe brain about that bike? And apart from the fact it was your first and did you say only ever brand new bike?
Yeah, my first and only ever.
So it's going to
brand
be
new
important
bike.
even for those reasons
Yeah,
alone. isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah. It was just coming out of the dealership and riding it home is like a brand. And here's the thing: this was in 1999. It was August 1999. It was £4,995 for a street 600.
Yeah.
Whereas now, yeah, no, you're not going to get that sort of thing for £4,000 now.
you're not.
I mean, its spiritual successor in the Yamaha lineup is now an MT-07.
And is that going to be like 7.5, 8 grand maybe?
That's going to be about £8,500 brand new now.
So near double.
Yeah, but it's like everything goes up over time.
Yeah.
But it was just, you know, shiny bike syndrome. And again, like my CBR, just went everywhere, did anything on it. Met my now wife. She used to come out in the back with it, and we used to like piss around. When I really started to take the piss when it comes to riding around and doing stupid shit on the road. I've never been able to do a wheelie to save my life. Well, that's not true. On my S1000i, if you get a bit heavy-handed with a throttle without even using
It's
the clutch,
going to do it anyway.
It does it
Whether
anyway.
you're intending to or not.
Yeah. But I used to be quite good, relatively speaking, with something called a stoppie, which is where you get the bike up on the front wheel.
Yeah, I get it.
And I used to love doing them on that bike. And I used to do little baby, what we call rolling stoppies. So come up to a set of traffic lights, give it some, and it would just come up and put it back and get down again. I used to love doing that.
You child.
It's the only bike I've ever done anything like that on that stunt. Yeah, I know.
Next car you're definitely going to know because I ended up being asked to, because of some birthday party thing, not going to go into detail. I was asked to keep you away from the house for an hour, and what better way to do it than to drive the car that I'd literally just picked up.
That was a very nice car.
So it's picture on screen now, and yes, we're now at the point where the picture qualities have improved. Because mine are in date. Have you all noticed with these videos, I tend to do them in a date order, whereas you tend to be a bit sort of shotgun.
Oh, we talked about yours are done in chronological order.
As I've owned them.
Yeah,
so it was a Ford Mondeo, Gear X, so good spec, 2.5 V6, so the V6 Duratec engine. I would call it an older day sort of sleeper car, because whilst it wasn't phenomenally quick, it looked as bland as any other Ford Mondeo.
Well, if Regan and Carter policed today,
It's what, sorry?
if Regan and Carter
Yeah,
policed
exactly.
today,
You would have something
they
like
would
that.
have that car.
You would definitely have something like that.
Yeah.
Because, and it was a saloon, and there weren't so many Mondeo saloons. They were nearly all hatchback. So it was a black saloon, as you've seen on screen. Yes, okay, the wheels were bigger, but there wasn't really anything else to denote the fact that under the bonnet was a 2.5 V6.
Yeah.
And although I've said
It
it
was
wasn't
so smooth.
fast,
Yeah.
it was quick.
Yeah.
But more importantly, as you've already said, the smoothness.
Effortless.
It wasn't trying.
No.
And back in the days when I was a little naughtier and sort of pushing at the line of legality, there used to be a route that I would take in the morning to work, which obviously you know the road well, and it was a nice long country road, and it was perfectly straight, and there was no junctions, and there was no farm entrances. It would be so easy without any effort at all to pass 3 cars in one go, because it just rode on a waft of V6
I'm guessing
loveliness.
it had a lot of torque then.
Yeah, and it was,
Right.
but again, it wasn't full on. It was never back in the seat job, but it kept going. It's like a train. So you would pass these 3 or 4 cars in one go, not in some silly fashion. It was just a waft, and you'd barely hear it. And of course, you've got the leather and the heated seats and the dark ash style looking wood and that lovely analog clock that sat in the middle. It was a nice place to sit. Because I've got one more car and then we'll end the video. Yes,
Yeah.
we're going to end the video, folks.
Obviously, you'll have to edit the pregnant pause out while I think of another bike.
5 minutes later.
I'm going to keep all that in because that was fascinating.
Yeah. And ironically, it's a bike that I very nearly bought again. I was at a bike dealership and they had one for sale, quite cheap. It was a 2016 Street Triple 675R.
Picture on screen now.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a picture of your actual bike or a picture from Google?
No, it won't be my actual bike.
Will it be a
Took any
picture from
pictures of it.
Google? Okay.
Yeah. I had it for a very brief period of time. Maybe had it for 3 or 4 months. And then I sold it. But my Christ, did it handle well. I mean, I didn't ride it that often because I bought it deliberately to like turn it over and sell it.
Yeah, okay.
But my word, I'd only describe her as like,
Oh, it's a her.
with regards to the engine and how the engine was, a bit like Scrappy Doo,
Yeah.
who just kind of always wanted to scrap, always wanted to go, didn't like bimbling around.
Couldn't shake it off.
And the handling, I would argue, outside of my BMW, best handling bike I ever rode. It's just extraordinary. And the brakes, oh my God. The brakes, it's just like, that bike just wanted to go all the time, period. And it was very happy when you let it off the leash.
Naughty.
Yeah, oh, it was a stunning, stunning little bike. Yeah.
We say little, but the horsepower must have still have been quite impressive.
I don't know what the horsepower was. 675cc, where it's probably a few cc's
It's probably
less
going
than
to be
that.
90 odd horsepower. Isn't it?
Yeah, I reckon about
Maybe
90
near
or
100.
95,
Yeah.
maybe 100. I don't think it would
It's
have been
going to be
100.
sufficient to make you smile.
Well, not only that, but because it's small and light, yeah, it was definitely quick enough. It was plenty quick enough.
What colour was it?
It was black.
Okay.
And the thing about smaller bikes with less power, as opposed to my S1000R, is you can use all the power. And the best thing about messing around in cars and bikes, as you all know, is being able to bounce it off the rem limiter.
Oh,
and basically
absolutely.
rag the tits off it.
Once it's hot enough, of course.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. But the issue with the 1000R is you do that in second gear and you're over. Well, in fact, you could do it in first gear and
And
you're
you're
pretty
already-
much just touching the national speed limit.
Yeah.
Second gear, you're going
You
to
could
court.
be well past it.
So even though you could give it the berries, you'd have to be reining it in all the time. That was half the fun, but it was also a little bit frustrating because you couldn't really anywhere give it max out and go all the way up the gearbox. But on a little bike, you can.
Yes.
You
And
know?
arguably, therefore, have a little bit more fun still because you're
Yes,
literally going.
absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, the acceleration on the 1000 was just Looney Tunes.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that little 675R.
So is that your last bike for the video?
Yes, yeah.
So technically, I think I'm probably one more than you then, but we're going to do it anyway because I'll make it quick and then we'll round off this video. Do like your bike choice, so I must admit. I'm looking forward to reminding myself what those bikes look like. You know the story of this one and you've already intimated it earlier in the video. So the car I definitely regretted selling. I first bought one
she have a
in
name?
2016. Not initially, no. I didn't name cars to start with. That became.
But this one
something
has
as I
got a name.
Yeah, so naming came in later on. So in 2016, I bought a Renault Sport Clio 220 Trophy. They used to be numbered editions. You'd open the door and there'd basically be a sticker on the sill that would give the number of that actual car. It was in flame red and it was with Renault's new what was called ID paint, which basically meant if you paid the extra money and whoever had bought it new had paid the extra money, it was flame red. You've got a base paint that's obviously flame red, but the lacquer had also got a colour on it too. So it was a very deep gloss colour. It was a very nice, it was an expensive option and it was an option that was ticked. So, and it looked great. I'm a particular fan of liquid yellow as well, but it was flame red and I absolutely loved the car. The problem was, apart from the fact that just after I bought the car, it suffered intermittent faults with the gearbox, which eventually got sorted by Renault, but it took 3 attempts and 3 breakdowns to get there. I used to travel 90 miles a day to commute to work and back.
In that car?
In that car. and because because you'd struggle to get 30 miles to the gallon because of the way I drove it, because it was fun, it became rather expensive at 90 miles a day. So I sold that in 2017 and I missed it, obviously. Fast forward to 2020, lockdown happened. No one was really doing anything. Can't believe that's so long ago now, but lockdown happened and I happened to find one for sale and it was being sold by what sounded like a true petrol head. I think he was the second owner. It was apparently in mint condition. It was flame red again. It was the later version, so black wheels now, which I'm not a fan of black wheels, but anyway. It wasn't numbered anymore, but it was basically the same car. Sounded like a petrol head and he got about 14,500 miles on the clock. I couldn't go to see it because of lockdown, but I knew a transport guy that was allowed to go and pick it up because he's a transport guy and he was allowed to work. Long story short, that turned up on the drive in May 2020. Partly due to lockdown and partly because of other reasons, the car then sat in my back garden because of the way the parking layout is, as you know, at our house. It sat there till the following year. So it didn't move at all. So it's still on 15,500 miles. When I eventually got to come to use it, the electronic steering lock had failed. The steering lock's stuck. And I couldn't actually move the car. In fact, the car wouldn't let me put it into gear or anything because obviously electronics refused to move the car. So obviously still under warranty. Long story short, the AA or whoever it was that looked after Renault at the time, they had to get a special truck out.
Was that the one on the video you showed me of it, like in your garage
Yes.
almost?
they had to get permission from Renault to pay for the special truck
Really?
to get it out because a standard recovery truck wasn't going to get it out.
Yeah.
It went to Renault, it got sorted, got it fresh MOT'd, and finally I was back in this RS Clear. Loved it to bits. Didn't do many miles in it, but loved it to bits. March 2024, hardly used it. Couldn't really justify the value that was still sitting in the car. And I did an old man thing of looking at it from a money point of view rather than the car point of view. And I sold it. And my heart broke within minutes or days or weeks of selling it. Fast forward to March 2025. Well, no, I digress a little. Late in 2024, I started looking on AutoTrader and eBay. Couldn't find one with low miles that I really liked. March 2025, I happened to find another flame red one. It had only got 21,000 miles on it, which was only 4,000 more than when I'd sold Chloe, as I called it, in March 2024. I got all excited. I start reading the blurb, and just as I was reading all the information, the little brain was ticking over, and I suddenly realised, after a few minutes and Googling the MOT history, it was my actual car that I'd sold in March 2024. So I bought, what a nice way to end this video, the car I regret selling. I actually bought the same car back. And I'm now the proud owner of the same car again. Okay, 2 wheels have got a mark on it. And I know that they've got a mark on it with the previous owner because that car was absolutely perfect when I sold it. But otherwise, it's like I'd never sold it at all.
Nice. Some
fantastic bikes that hopefully we've enjoyed seeing on screen today. And some interesting cars. Austin Maestro, interesting? I'm not sure. But they're the vehicles, the bikes that we regret selling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah, on the next one.
Yeah, stick with us.